out on the road this morning. It is a gorgeous day to be driving before the sunrise out on the Palouse. This can be one of the most beautiful areas in the world at certain times of the year, and this is one of them. When the snow is covering the Palouse and the sky is enormous. It's beautiful out here. And I've been thinking a lot about conspiracy theories. Obviously, one of the reasons is a whole bunch of conspiring is being uncovered around us right now. And one of the things that starts to happen in days and ages like ours is people start to believe that conspiracies are the bedrock that gives shape and gives meaning to the world around us. And I've been watching it happen for the last few years. It's gotten more and more prevalent for everyone you know to believe in conspiracies and being able to explain the world through conspiracies. And it doesn't it makes it more prevalent when you see a bunch of conspiracies unearthed, like we have seen over the last few weeks, the last few months, that there really are actually conspiracies going on. There are people with power that are trying to control society or control all sorts of things, money and power, in secret ways, in the dark, rather than through the official channels. And what I think is really important in moments like these is to remember that conspiracies aren't the foundation, right? And what I mean by that is you start to look around and say, and start looking for conspiracies. Oh, there's one, or there's one, thinking that the reason, the thing that gives meaning to the world is conspiracies, because we live in a very chaotic time. And when things get very chaotic and the institutions fail us, the institutional way of doing things turns out to have been full of fraud, and you start thinking, well, all those things that gave the world its meaning and its shape, and that gave reality its sensibility, we can make sense of reality through the institutions that gave our life identity and meaning, are failing us. So there has to be some other deeper reason, and one of the things that it's easy to go to is conspiracies. And especially, when you start reading history of the last 70 years and realize how many attempted conspiracies, some successful, some unsuccessful, have been, right? That it really is a thing. But the reason that people turn to trying to control the world with conspiracy, besides just the normal sin, is when the institutions start being treated as the enemy, or the thing we need to be rescued from. People start looking for some other way to control the world, because it's just unacceptable for the world to be out of control and to be meaningless. Man, I wish you guys could see how beautiful it is out here this morning. But the reality is, the institutions that still hold the world together are the covenant institutions established by God, and their jurisdictions are still real. They're still there. The family, the state, and the church, and then the individual are all individual. It sort of is an institution. It's not exactly an institution, but it does function along similar grounds, because they're all covenant relationships directly with God and then with one another. And the principles of covenant relationships continue to hold because Christ is still king. And you see a lot of people now, saying, well, Christ is king, as if it helps them be on the right side of a number of conspiracies. But the reality is, God promises to be with us to the end of the age, that he is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that those that conspire against his people only can succeed when God's people are faithless. This is part of the curses, the blessings and curses in Deuteronomy, is when we are faithless with the Lord. One of the curses that comes upon us is the 1,000 are turned by 10. That the 10,000 are turned by 100. Right? When you have overwhelming numbers, but the conspiracy works against you, and you're turned by a small group. Well, that's, Deuteronomy says that is that happens when we aren't faithfully serving the Lord. We aren't faithfully worshiping the Lord. We aren't faithfully. We aren't trusting the Lord. And I think that principle, and then what we do is we normalize that principle. We normalize that. So rather than repenting and saying, "Whoa, where do we need to turn back to the Lord? Where have we misused the word sacraments? Where have we not worshiped the Lord? Where have we trusted in other gods?" Rather than turning from our idolatry, we turn it into a kind of natural law. The world runs on conspiracies because this one was successful or that one was successful, or there's people trying to do them all over the place. And it doesn't take away the fact that people are trying to do them all over the place. But what it does is it shows us that the shape of reality is actually based on the covenants of the Lord, and that faithfulness to the Lord, right? Trusting in him and doing what he calls us to do, all of those things is actually what gives shape to society and gives shape to the world around us, and not the conspiracies. The conspiracies are alien to the way God does things. It's not the way God tells us to do things. So, but then also, that means that there's all sorts of, oh my gosh, the sunrise is so gorgeous this morning. I don't know if you're watching, if you can see how incredible that is. But the shape of that reality takes is based on whether or not we are trusting in the Lord, whether or not, and there are a lot of things that God is doing that don't make the news. So when we only look at when we get all of our news just simply straight from the news sources, there's a lot of things that God is doing that aren't going to make the news. The same sort of way that all throughout history, there's times when it looks like things suddenly change, and you go, well, where did that all come from? God brings in all sorts of blessings at times, and you didn't see it coming. But that's because God's work often doesn't. The place where God is working, where He's returning us to the covenant faithfulness, where He is restoring His people, where He's reforming us, all of that stuff, often doesn't make the news. And so it's easy to lose hope when you think conspiracy is fundamental, and that the news is telling the whole story when it's really not. So, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about lately.